ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and privilege to meet you all in this interesting and exciting session. Changing dynamics and opportunities. Indeed, these are changing times, challenging times. Last week I was in Washington, D.C. I met some of the International Monetary Fund people who have just finished the spring meeting. Extraordinary set of global economic scene. The global growth has been revised downwards. I was in Lima, Peru, way back in October, South America, for the International Monetary Fund meeting. The global growth was projected at 3.4%. Even there were school of thoughts. They were converging on 3.6. Finally, they resolved 3.4% should be the realistic indicator. Now it has been revised downward at 3.2%. In fact, if you look at the global economic momentum, it is less than 2009. Advanced economies are supposed to be reporting 1.9%. Within the advanced economies, you have United States is highly volatile in terms of their economic outlook. They should be reporting 2.4% as their annual growth. 1.9% again by United Kingdom. Japan should be doing 0.5%. We have seen negative interest. We also see negative interest in Europe, Eurozone, in large Europe, if you look at it, 1.5%. Apart from the advanced economies, if you look at the emerging markets, you have seen a reflection of slowdown. The global growth itself is on account of improved liquidity. When we realized way back in 2008, the Lehman Brothers collapsed, our bastion was bought out, it was confined to liquidity. Liquidity crisis moved into a funding crisis. Funding crisis moved into a solvency and sovereign issue. And everyone recognized we have to print money, inflate the financial assets. America started the game, what you call quantitative easing. Trillions of dollars were put into open market operations, and money supply improved, chased the stock market, chased the emerging market, transcended borders, and housing market was recovering. Essentially, purchasing power parity was said to be recovering, and jobless claims were reducing, but still, the targeted growth is not visible in terms of inflation as well as growth. There is lack of synchronized momentum. On the contrary, you have synchronized slowdown in the global scene. America realized after 3 quantitative easing, trillions of dollars, additional liquidity pumped, they have realized it's time. The sustainable economics is visible. As such, the jobless claims were reduced to 5.2. And again, the inflation is the only issue which they targeted 2%. And there are enough signals that it is going to pick up. They should start realizing it's time to stop the printing additional money supply and rising the interest rate. They put on hold the QE and put on the thought leadership by Federal Reserve that they should start looking at interest rate hike. Prematurely, in December last year, they did rise. The consequence was wild around the world. There was an absolute deceleration in the emerging markets, currencies, commodities, stocks, bonds, went into carnage. Housing markets also started feeling the pulse. Extraordinary set of deliberations again took place. Originally they were looking at options to increase the interest rate 4 times. Now they revised down in the last meeting twice, possibly. The last quarter, US growth was 0.5%, highly uneven in terms of their sustainability. So, the essence is global economics is going through extraordinary volatile moments. We have seen the reflection in the euro. In large Europe, centralized monetary policy, fiscal policy is absolutely indisciplined. Gross debt to GDP is out of order. Countries or individuals or institutions who are living beyond their means have to come to terms to reconcile, and they have to contain the fiscal framework. In large Europe is said to be still technically under reflation. Pumping money, additional money supply, ECB still prints money. Over 60 billion a month. And again, they have bond buying programs to inflate. Otherwise, technically, they are under recession. Artificially administering the barometers and start inflating the enlarged euro. But it's a design issue in terms of alignment between monetary and fiscal prudence. We have seen also a reflection in UK. Now you have Brexit, whether to be part of EU or not. That's going to be decided on 23rd of June. That is going to ignite the space in real order. The UK economy itself is going through extraordinary turbulence. Meanwhile, Japan has realized if America can print money, Europe can print money, UK can print money, they can also inflate and pull out Japan from the technical recessions. Abenomics was invented 3 years before. They were putting trillions of yen into open market operations, and they were trying to inflate. It's coming up, but growth is not picking up as much as they want. Inflation is not picking up as much as they want. Reflection, you have seen negative interest in the Europe, and again, in Japan, you have seen negative interest. While the advanced economies story is like this, if you look at the emerging markets, China, which was an economic engine for the entire world for over 30 years, growing not less than 9%, now it started showing its true reflection. And again, the administrative system is in terms of currency is getting monetized, and globally, yuan is getting transcending borders. Trade settlements are taking place, and they started picking up alternate to US dollars. But the issue remains, the acceleration has slowed down, and the growth is now downward. Manufacturing index clearly reveals it's not going to gain momentum, and we have seen the reflection of the currency, again, downward revision, and it has got wider impact in terms of global economic momentum because China was driving the rest of the world. So it's the second largest world economy, said to be underperforming now, still formidable in terms of substance of 6.5% growth. Possibly next year also they can do 6.5%. India is a functional democracy. It was a huge mandate in 2014 to Prime Minister Modi, and we have seen economic momentum, free liberalization in terms of market economics, managerial economics, investment climate, liberalization has gone into defense to the constructions to real estate, to healthcare, to whatnot, and extraordinary set of opportunity was revealed, and again, politics and economics needs to converge to sustain in real order 7.5%, 8%. But still, the scorecard is formidable. Number one, in terms of performance, 7.5% is sustainable. Now, if you look at the underlying economics of Russia, it's negative, contraction, 3.5%. After the annexation of Crimea, they are in absolute disorder in terms of financial market as well as economic momentum. The currency got depreciated, possibly it's recovering this year. When it comes to capital market, is out of order in real respects to changing dynamics. When it comes to Brazil, you have seen the political tussle. There's an impeachment on the existing president, and we have seen the reflection in terms of lack of alignment between fiscal and monetary policy, and they got degenerated. Contraction in real order, 1.5%. In terms of economic momentum, negative. That's emerging markets. In terms of financial markets, if you see, with the reflection of dollar index getting strengthened, and commodities have a different spin. Commodities and currencies are intertwined. When dollar is weak, we hedge the risk by buying commodity futures, and oil was costing 147, not because demand was exponentially going up or supply was running short, but it was currency which was also playing a bigger role in terms of currency futures, oil futures, more of speculations, which was driving the oil price over very many years, over $100. That has given enormous amount of enrichment for financial stability as well as sovereign funds for the Gulf states. Gone are the days where they used to have 2 trillion as the GDP. If you look at the current deflection of the oil price and the allied impact on the economic momentum, the GDP is said to be 1.3 trillion. Splitting the numbers of 1.3 trillion, topping in the list is Saudi Arabia with $618 billion with a current account deficit, fiscal deficit of course. The rating agencies have downgraded them from AA to A minus. Twice it got downgraded. And again, UAE is costing around 325 billion US dollars with 2.4% growth, a very marginal deficit which is less than 1%, of $5 to $6 billion. But oil is deflecting the overall arithmetics. UAE apart, if you look at Qatar, which was costing over $200 billion, now is set to be producing 170 billion. Oman should be around 51 billion, Bahrain is around 30 billion, and Kuwait is 106 billion. Summing it up, it's 1.3 trillion is the GDP. As in aggregate terms, if you look at the world oil market, it's contentious. We had production freeze, agreed and disagreed between OPEC and non-OPEC, and we have seen reflection in the financial markets that at least it's an indication. Production freeze itself is a positive aspect. Whether you have production cut or not, you have seen a very positive semblance of oil price moving up. Last 2.5 months, it is posting in decent terms. If you look at the oil price today, Brent is quoting $45, and $44 for US crude is formidable. And arithmetics in terms of fiscal framework, if you look at it, it's all between $45 to $50. Individual countries have taken their own yardstick. That's the momentum we are seeing in the global economics. If you look at the regional reflection, the current account surplus, as I mentioned, has become current account deficit, and fiscal surplus is not there. The diversification is a structured solution which was originally propelling the diversity in multiple sectors. Out of 6.6 trillion global sovereign funds, 2.3 to 2.4 trillion has come from this region. That was invested in multiple markets, that was producing alternate revenues, that was driving the change, and the challenges on account of the deflection of the oil price was compensated by prudent investment revenues. Today, if you look at the Gulf market, the rating agencies are looking at with sense of nervousness. They are not comfortable with the overall financial stability. There were options contemplated in real order, shale gas, what it can do for the oil market. What will be the reflection of the liquidity in the region? What will be the diversification as a structured solution? What will be the changing face of the revenue streams for the Gulf economies? While the expenditure has been committed, expansionary fiscal policy has been committed, airport, seaport, road, rail. 2022 in Qatar, 2020 here, you need to diversify the revenues to meet the committed expenditure which are enlarged. How do we bring in the enlarged revenue stream? What sort of fiscal reforms we require? That was an issue. And that's precisely the reason there was consensus in fiscal reforms. The 6 states put together contemplating from 2018 to bring in VAT, and that's going to stimulate 1 or 2% GDP. We also seen individual states reorganizing their revenue stream. Countries like Qatar was setting up, increasing the stamp duty, and again putting tax on the energy drinks or entertainments or cigars. But how much they can absorb by the extra revenues, the additional incremental cost, that's an issue. If you look at the UAE economy in specific terms, That's the most diversified economy within the Gulf states. When rating agencies, right from S&P, when they were downgrading 3 of the Gulf states, namely Saudi Arabia, as you mentioned, it has come from AAA to AA to A minus now. If you look at the real reflection, they couldn't touch UAE, they couldn't touch the Kuwait economy. Huge amount of external reserves and sovereign funds. And again, Qatar. These 3 countries still ratings were reaffirmed in terms of AA. Why? There is a financial stability. Why? There is a diversification. Why? There is an opportunity for them to moderate their government expenditure and making sure fiscal reforms are coming in. The rest of the 3 countries, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and Oman, were downgraded. In fact, Bahrain was below the investment grade, the indicators and assignment was done. That has got a wider reflection in terms of your business model. Does it mean everything is gloom and doom? The answer is no. This is an opportunity for you to realize. That's the very purpose of this session today. If you look at it in specific terms, opportunity lies in UAE economy more than any other economy. While the gross domestic product is said to be $325 billion, the diversification as a structured solution is showcasing 64% of the economy is diversified already. Within the 325 billion, 263 billion, 2/3 of the underlying economics comes from Abu Dhabi, which has got 50% non-hydrocarbon. We have seen reflection of 2030 vision, which is going to drive the industrial Khalifa city and also at midterm terminals and also extension of Etihad rails, which is going to again propel momentum in real order. The investable surplus, sovereign funds put in multiple markets, is going to generate additional revenue stream. I have seen representatives from Mubadala and others. That's going to stimulate additional revenues. However, the market risk is visible. We have seen the reflection in the stock market. If you look at the Gulf state itself, out of the 6 Gulf states, UAE market still holds good. Dubai financial markets still 6% up. Abu Dhabi is nearly 1.9%. That shows clearly a character in terms of price earning multiples. In fact, it is cheaper to invest in Abu Dhabi. These are very good in terms of price earning multiples, less than 12 times, 11.43 times in terms of price earning. Price to book value is 1.46 times. This is the cheapest market where the investment return is guaranteed. We also seen a reflection in terms of the government budget. UAE market itself is topping in the list in terms of government expenditure. Out of 156 billion total government fiscal expenditure for 2016 to 17. Topping in the list is UAE with 56 billion. Qatar is 24 billion, rather 31 billion. 24 billion comes from Kuwait, and we have seen a very similar reflection of Oman, who doing 17 billion, and Bahrain doing 5 billion. And overall, if you look at the government expenditure, we have UAE is a major expenditure coming on account of the urban development. Splitting in the UAE expenditure, government expenditure, 35 billion is from government of Abu Dhabi alone. Chemical and construction are major contributory, over 25 billion. Oil and gas hydrocarbon is very limited. So there is a definite opportunity in terms of contracts, a subcontract, or even in terms of investments. When you see the financial markets within the Gulf definition, as I said, it is an opportunity to invest, and we also seen a reflection in terms of property market. While the rest of the world is reeling under pressure, Gulf market started on account of liquidity stress. Liquidity stress in real order. It is realistic, isn't it? If you look at the 6 states put together lost over 600 billion, over half a trillion, if they're going to lose in terms of productivity, and has got a reflection in your current account, obviously this has to be made up in terms of fiscal prudence. You have to additionally borrow with a AA rating. All countries are borrowing. Abu Dhabi has borrowed over $5 billion last week. Qatar has announced $5 billion. Mubadala is coming out with, Ooredoo is coming out with. The sovereign and corporate bonds are growing up, and investors are oversubscribing to the Gulf markets. They know. Even when Bahrain was underrated by the rating agencies, it was oversubscribed in real order, because the financial stability still is integral in aggregate terms. And more you will have reflection of additional liquidity coming to the local market by borrowings. The Gulf states were conservative in terms of fiscal prudence, and they were hesitating in terms of borrowing. I was questioning every finance minister whenever I meet them. Why you are not borrowing? What is your gross debt to GDP? Gone are the days when America has got over 100% gross debt in terms of GDP. As a percentage of gross debt to GDP is over 100%. If you look at the European economy, they are over 65, 70%. Many countries even 100%. The reflection in the Gulf states on account of the GDP reduction, the percentage could be between 25 to 30%. Countries like Qatar is, moving into 35 to 40. But external borrowing is a must. Borrow and pump additional liquidity in the market stability comes in. And that's what the engagement today, alignment between monetary policy and fiscal policy, is happening in the Gulf states. That's an opportunity. Don't underestimate the current crisis. It has got impact, but fiscal and monetary prudence can fix it. By and large, our capacity to borrow in the international market is definitely there. When you have negative interest rate in Japan or in Europe, where are they going to pump money? Unless they invest in investable grade countries like Qatar or UAE. So definitely I have seen reflection. I have seen the reflection. This is all going to be oversubscribed and borrowing cost is going to come down. That will again stimulate the real estate. Industrial expansion is taking place in Abu Dhabi. We have industrial development. Bureau has been doing a good job, and we have seen the market contribution is over 15% in terms of GDP. We also seen UAE as a whole, SME plays a big role. There are many institutions, including Doha Bank, learned a lesson in terms of SME lending. I'm not ruling out the difficulties and challenges in subscribing and financing the unsecured loans. But the opportunity still lies in recognizing SME is a backbone for financial stability. Sustainable economics comes out of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. And that's what the Gulf states, Gulf nations are engaged in to produce an outstanding support for the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. And that is going to come. There are countries like Qatar who are doing a partial guarantee to the banks to promote further SMEs. 87% of my lending for SME is guaranteed by Qatar Development Bank. So I have joint risk participation. All my lending now is confined to within Qatar is for SMEs or through Qatar Development Bank. There are ways and means of, supporting the SMEs. That's going to happen. But neither, however, is to recognize the market momentum is still there. Market momentum is there in terms of all sectors. I elucidate some of them. With me, the Allied panel is responsive enough to showcase you the bigger opportunities. The crisis is nothing but realignment of your business model. The crisis is nothing but opportunity for you to redefine your business model. That's the message we want to articulate tonight. We recognize there are growing challenges in the global economics. I have given you a full dictum of it. We recognize the regional reflection is also going through extraordinary set of changes. The countries are redefining the business model. You have seen the market liberalization in Saudi. Investment climate is getting simplified. Asset management companies are going to mushroom. Capital market is opening up. Additional participation comes from internal investment. Intra-GCC investments is going to flow. If you look at the trade, UAE economy is very strong in terms of trade. More than the GDP of 325 billion, 463 billion is the trade last year. No country has produced more than the GDP but for UAE. And the free trade agreement which UAE economy has signed with Singapore, there is a representative from Singapore as well here today. That's working well. With Scandinavian countries, it has already been signed. There are individual specific negotiations that are taking place, including India, to have FTA with the Gulf states. That's all going to evolve. The crisis in terms of the global makeup is nothing but realignment of your business model. Then you can derive the value advantage in terms of opportunities. And that's what the message is all about. To explain you further, tonight I have a very elite panel to showcase the capital market as well as the financial markets conditions, and the extensive research experience is going to be very handy for Mr. Talal from Ramsey Capital. He's going to enlighten you with a set of thoughts which are going to add value to the audience. And again, Acharya, who is a qualified chartered accountant from my fraternity, and essentially he's going to showcase the corporate finance in terms of macroeconomics and what sort of realignment required in the changing business model. He's going to showcase that. Women participation in governance is a must in today's world. Eradication of extreme poverty, gender equality, maternal health care, child mortality needs to be fixed. And again, environment sustainability. Today, UN Millennium Development Goals have been redefined as Sustainable Development Goals. Women participation comes in everywhere. Countries which have given due recognition to women, corporates who have given due recognition to women have been successful and sustaining their credits. To elucidate, Madam Huda is there to showcase what sort of participation can add value to your business. And again, as it was introduced, a man of extraordinary strength who knows the region more than 60, 70 years, who has grown with the region, a man of extraordinary vision, a patriot in every sense as far as India as well as the Gulf states are concerned, is there to enlighten you on the consumer retailing side. This is the elite panel for you, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to ask questions. We'll interrupt after every speakers and for one or two questions, and we'll also make sure we have a final say on the question answers. It is you to drive the evening vision to collective execution. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention. Thank you.